My husband's family mocked me for being the poor girl he married, laughed at my clothes, my job, my past. But at their company's annual board meeting, they froze in silence when they realized I was the one who owned everything. The first thing I learned when I met Daniel's family was that wealth speaks louder than manners. Their house wasn't just big, it was monumental. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, rooms so large you could play hide and seek without ever being found. And every surface glimmered like a curated Instagram post. I remember stepping onto the polished foyer, clutching my modest purse, and feeling like a mouse in a cathedral. I wasn't always quiet. I had a voice, once. But life taught me that some words cost more than silence. I grew up in a small apartment with my mother, who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. We had no designer clothes, no vacations, no family name to lean on. But we had grit, wit, and determination. I learned to stretch every dollar, make every opportunity count, and observe carefully. It was this upbringing that kept me calm as my future in-laws dissected me like a specimen. They didn't know my past. They didn't know my mind. And that, I realized, was my first advantage. The moment I stepped into their dining room, my mother-in-law's eyes swept over me, pausing just long enough to make me notice every perceived flaw. "You must be Emily," she said, her tone flat, calculating. "Yes, ma'am," I replied, steadying my voice. I smiled, but it felt like a shield. Dinner was a minefield. Every question felt like a test. What exactly do your parents do? Where did you go to school? How did someone like you meet Daniel? I answered politely, revealing nothing unnecessary. Every compliment I tried to offer was met with a faint smile that didn't reach the eyes. Claire, Daniel's sister, leaned over mid-meal and whispered, "Oh, Emily, you must feel lucky to be here." Lucky. Lucky was what they called me when they assumed I had nothing. Lucky for marrying their son. Lucky for surviving their world. I nodded, not giving them the satisfaction of anger. Daniel held my hand under the table, squeezing gently when comments grew sharper. But he didn't defend me. Not once. I wanted to yell, to demand he choose me over them. But I didn't. I smiled instead. I listened. I learned. Their arrogance would be their undoing. When it came to the wedding, their generosity was a double-edged sword. They controlled every detail, from the venue to the menu to the guest list. And with every suggestion I made, they reminded me, subtly, that I didn't belong. That silhouette won't flatter you. Let's choose something simpler. You'll need to be grateful. This kind of wedding is impossible on your salary. Even Daniel's mother whispered once, "You're very lucky Daniel didn't choose someone more established." I smiled politely. Inside, something hardened. I was done being defined by what they thought I was. I noticed everything. The way they spoke to employees, the way Claire manipulated conversations, the little cracks in their perfect facade. Daniel's family believed that money and status were all that mattered. They didn't realize that quiet intelligence and patience could wield more power than wealth alone. I spent months observing. I learned who held influence in their company, which board members could be persuaded, and which mistakes they had made in secrecy. I didn't act yet. I waited. I listened. I prepared. Even before the wedding ended, small humiliations continued. At family dinners, they corrected my pronunciation of French wines and foods. They openly doubted my career, asking how someone with such a modest salary could manage their life. They laughed at the way I saved money, called my thrift store dress charming in a quaint way. Each comment, each laugh, stung. But instead of breaking me, it strengthened me. Every insult was a reminder that I could rise above them. Late at night, I would lie awake thinking, they think poor equals powerless. They think humility is weakness. They don't see me. They never will, until it's too late. And then I would plan. Not revenge, not yet. Just strategy. I would let them think they had won. I would let them humiliate me, mock me, and assume superiority. And when the moment came, they would realize that the person they had scorned for being poor was the one who quietly held all the cards. It arrived like a weapon in the mail. Thick cream cardstock with gold lettering. Hawthorne Industries Annual Charity Gala. Daniel's mother placed it on the kitchen counter, not even hiding her smirk. "You'll need a new dress," she said. "This is a certain crowd." I glanced at the date. 2 weeks away. "I have something appropriate," I replied calmly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I meant something that won't embarrass Daniel." Daniel was silent, staring at the invitation. I knew exactly what she meant. For a week, I scoured boutiques, looking for something elegant but subtle, expensive enough to blend in without showing off. I paid for it myself. Pride is a strange thing when you've been mocked your whole life. I practiced my posture, my smiles, my laughter. Every glance in the mirror reminded me, they think I'm beneath them. Let them underestimate me. The ballroom sparkled like the night sky. Chandeliers reflected gold and crystal, walls adorned with portraits of men and women in power. Every detail screamed wealth and superiority. Claire spotted me immediately. "Oh wow," she said, circling me like a predator. "You clean up surprisingly well." I smiled politely. "Thank you." "Just stick close to Daniel," she whispered. "These people can be judgmental." I suppressed a laugh. Judgmental was their specialty. I was ready for it. Daniel introduced me quietly to the executives. "This is Emily," he said, voice almost apologetic. No last name. No context. Just Emily. I may as well have been invisible. But I watched. Every gesture, every conversation, every flaw in their behavior. Then a board member made a critical error in strategy. I corrected him, calmly, without aggression. That approach would violate federal compliance regulations, especially under the 2018 revisions. The room went silent. One executive stared, incredulous. Before they could respond, Claire leaned over. "Oh, Emily, don't bore them with theory. She works in non-profit." Polite laughter followed. They dismissed me. I made a mental note. Their arrogance will be their undoing. That night in the car, I asked him gently, "Why don't you ever defend me?" He sighed. "It's not that simple. It feels simple enough. They already think I married beneath my station," he said quietly. "If I push back, it only makes things worse." "For who?" I asked. He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. My first lesson: I could count on no one but myself. Weeks passed. The comments grew sharper, more personal. At brunch, his father laughed. "Proof you can marry up without knowing how to manage wealth." Claire mocked my thrift store fashion choices, charming in a quaint, little way. Daniel subtly corrected my speech in public, reminding me of my place. Each slight was designed to chip away at my confidence. But instead, each humiliation fueled my resolve. I remembered my mother, working herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities, and I promised silently, "I will not be broken. I will rise." It happened at Daniel's father's birthday dinner. Wine flowed, laughter echoed, and my humiliation became the centerpiece. "Well, Emily," his father said, raising a glass, "proof anyone can marry into success." The table erupted in laughter. Daniel laughed too, quietly, letting the humiliation cut deeper. That night, I lay awake, feeling a cold determination settle over me. I am done letting them define me. Done letting them think they are superior. I will play their game, but on my terms. The next morning, while Daniel showered, I made a phone call I had been avoiding for years. "Hello." "Hi, it's Emily," I said calmly. A pause. Then a sharp inhale. "We were wondering when you'd call." "I think it's time to stop pretending I'm just his wife," I said. And for the first time, I felt the quiet thrill of power. For years, I had been underestimated. I had been mocked, dismissed, and corrected. I had been treated like I was nothing. But now I had the knowledge, the patience, and the leverage to turn the tables. I would wait. I would observe. I would act, but not yet. Every insult, every laugh, every correction was a step toward my eventual triumph. And when it came, they wouldn't see it coming. The city was buzzing outside, oblivious to the storm building in my life. I sipped coffee quietly, staring out at the skyline. Everything looked calm. But inside me, the gears were turning. I had learned their patterns, their weaknesses, their arrogance. They thought wealth made them untouchable. They didn't see me. They never would, until it was too late. One evening, Daniel came home grinning. "They're making me director of strategic development," he said proudly. "That's great," I replied. "You'll need to attend fewer company events now," he added casually. "Why?" I asked, sensing the underlying implication. "They think it's better optics," he said, shrugging. "Your presence isn't necessary at these corporate meetings." I smiled faintly. That word again, optics. As if I were a prop, a decoration. I let it go. Patience was my ally. The next few weeks were a constant battlefield. At Daniel's father's golf tournament, Claire whispered to the sponsors, "She's just a sweet girl from nowhere." At family brunches, his mother commented on my modest upbringing, comparing it unfavorably to the wealth and sophistication of her own family. Even Daniel began subtly correcting my speech in public, further cementing my place in their eyes. But I observed, learning every detail of how they interacted with employees, board members, and each other. Every flaw was a crack in their armor, and I collected them meticulously. I wasn't just going to endure, I was going to prepare strategically. Research the company. I studied Hawthorne Industries from top to bottom. Board members, financial statements, past acquisitions, compliance reports. Every weakness was noted. Legal preparation. I contacted lawyers who confirmed that my controlling shares were intact, untouched, and legally mine. Observation, family dinners, corporate events, casual conversations, they all revealed arrogance, greed, and oversight. The beauty of it was that they never suspected me. They assumed I was powerless. Daniel began showing cracks of doubt. One evening, he confronted me quietly. Emily, why are you spending so much time on the company? I'm learning, I said softly. It's important. He hesitated. I don't want to hurt my family. You know how much this means to them. I know, I replied. But it's already been hurt by their cruelty toward me. I'm just leveling the field. For the first time, he realized that loyalty to family doesn't always mean doing what's right. Weeks later, the company faced a serious compliance audit. Emails, documents, and internal reports revealed that past mismanagement could cost millions. Daniel's father stormed into our apartment, face red with anger and frustration. Do you know anything about regulatory filings? He demanded. I met his gaze calmly. Some, I replied. Well, keep your opinions to yourself, he snapped. This is grown-up business. I didn't flinch. I only smiled softly. That night, I made another discreet call, setting the groundwork for my eventual claim to power. I began making small, quiet interventions, correcting a miscalculation in a financial report before anyone noticed, advising a junior executive on compliance strategies, suggesting minor operational adjustments that saved the company money. Each small act built a silent reputation. Employees began noticing my insight, my calm authority, and my knowledge. The family, still blinded by arrogance, remained unaware. Late one night, sitting alone on the balcony, I reflected. They think they are untouchable. They think money equals power. They don't see that intelligence, patience, and strategy can move mountains. I could feel the moment approaching when everything would change. And when it did, it would silence them completely. The city skyline gleamed through the glass walls as I arrived at Hawthorne Industries. I felt a calm thrill. This was my moment, but not yet a spectacle. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits, it observes, it strikes quietly. Daniel's family was already there. His father's expression was smug. Claire's eyes narrowed with anticipation. Daniel, he looked nervous, uncertain. You weren't scheduled to attend, his father said, voice sharp. I am now, I replied, stepping into the room with quiet authority. I placed my briefcase on the table, opened it, and pulled out neatly organized documents. Before we begin, I said, voice steady, we need to clarify something about ownership. Murmurs rippled through the room. Ownership? A board member asked. Yes, I continued. Apparently, there's been a misunderstanding. I am the controlling shareholder of Hawthorne Industries, and I've held this position for years. Heads turned. Daniel's mother gasped. Claire froze. Daniel's father paled. You what? He stammered. I slid a folder across the table. All documents are here. Voting shares, legal certifications, everything you assumed was under your control, has been mine. Quietly. Legally. Intact. The room was silent. Every whisper, every assumption of superiority shattered in an instant. I continued, calm and precise. You mocked me for being poor. You laughed at my clothes, my career, my family. You corrected me, dismissed me, and treated me like I was nothing. But none of that changed reality. Executives began to murmur in agreement. One finally spoke up. Emily, these are the controlling shares. You've been the majority owner since the incorporation of the new division in 2019. Daniel's mother clutched the table edge. Claire's face turned red with anger and embarrassment. Exactly, I said. You let arrogance blind you. You underestimated me. And that, gentlemen and ladies, is the cost of underestimating someone who observes, plans, and acts strategically. Daniel looked at me, stunned. You own this, he whispered. Yes, I replied softly. And now I control every decision you've been bragging about at family dinners. He opened his mouth, but there was nothing to say. Silence spoke louder than any words could. I outlined my immediate plans. Reorganizing board responsibilities, implementing transparent operations, correcting past mismanagement, rewarding competence, not nepotism. The room listened, captivated. My calm, precise authority left no room for argument. Daniel's father tried to assert control, but the board had already shifted their loyalty. They looked to me now for direction. Claire tried to speak up, attempting manipulation and charm. Emily, surely you can't. I interrupted, calm and deadly. Claire, your attempts to undermine me have been noted. From now on, all communications and decisions will be documented. Your influence will be measured by results, not entitlement. Her face turned crimson. She realized that cruelty had consequences. Later, Daniel pulled me aside. I didn't realize you were this capable. I thought I was protecting you by staying silent. I looked him in the eye. Protecting me? or protecting yourself from your family. You let them humiliate me for years. He flinched. I see that now. I don't know how to fix it. You start by being honest. Admit the mistakes. And stop siding with cruelty over integrity. The meeting ended. As I walked out, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The family had been silenced, not by shouting or vengeance, but by observation, preparation, and patience. Employees whispered in the hallways, acknowledging my authority. The executives were already shifting to support my plans. The family, once untouchable, was finally exposed. And Daniel finally saw me, not as his wife or a poor girl, but as the woman who had quietly held all the power. The city outside was oblivious, but inside me, everything had changed. I walked through Hawthorne Industries with calm confidence. The executives now looked to me for direction, not Daniel or his family. The once intimidating boardroom now felt like home. I had played my hand perfectly, quiet observation, strategic preparation, and patience. And now the family, who thought they controlled everything, was beginning to grasp the magnitude of their miscalculation. The first step was corporate restructuring. Executive reassignments. Board members who had blindly followed Daniel's father were now reporting directly to me. Policy revisions. I implemented transparent operations, auditing every decision, ensuring no favoritism or nepotism remained. Operational improvements. Minor inefficiencies became major lessons, with the executives quickly learning who truly understood the business. The employees whispered in hallways, impressed by my precision and knowledge. The family, still arrogant, remained unaware of just how quickly I was consolidating control. As my influence became undeniable, the family's demeanor shifted. Daniel's mother called incessantly, trying to guilt me. Emily, we built this family. How could you take control? I answered politely. Respect is earned, not demanded. You spent years undermining me. I'm merely correcting the imbalance. Claire tried manipulation. You can't do this, Emily. This is our family legacy. I smiled calmly. Legacy built on arrogance and cruelty isn't worth protecting. You'll need to learn that. Daniel was caught in the middle, struggling to reconcile loyalty to his family with loyalty to me. One evening, Daniel finally approached me. Emily, I didn't know. I thought I was protecting you by staying silent. Protecting me? I asked softly. Or protecting yourself from their wrath. You let them humiliate me for years. He flinched, ashamed. I see that now. How do we move forward? Honesty, I said. Acknowledge your mistakes. Stop siding with cruelty. And support me when necessary. For the first time, he truly recognized me as an equal, not just a wife, but a force to be reckoned with. Claire, ever cunning, attempted to undermine me publicly by leaking false information to a local business reporter. I confronted her in my office. Claire, you thought cruelty and manipulation would give you power. It didn't. It made you predictable and weak. Her face burned with embarrassment. You can't, she started. I just did, I interrupted calmly. She was reassigned, stripped of privileges, and made accountable to me. Her arrogance had led her directly into public humiliation, and she had no one to blame but herself. Months passed. Emily's authority became undeniable. Employees admired her leadership. Board members deferred to her judgment. Media outlets covered her initiatives and successes, unaware of the family tension beneath the surface. Daniel's father, once untouchable, faced scrutiny from shareholders for mismanagement. He could no longer dismiss Emily as the poor girl. The entire family had been humbled. At the next company gala, I stood before the room as CEO, confident and composed. We've rebuilt Hawthorne Industries on respect, integrity, and vision. True power doesn't come from wealth, family name, or entitlement. It comes from resilience, intelligence, and courage. And every challenge we've faced has proven that strength isn't inherited, it's earned. Applause echoed. Daniel stood beside me, finally seeing me for who I truly was. You've always been remarkable, he whispered. And now everyone else knows it too, I replied. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need shouting or anger. I let the family underestimate me, let them humiliate me, and allowed their arrogance to blind them. Then, quietly and strategically, I claimed what was mine. I wasn't just Daniel's wife. I was Emily Hawthorne, the woman who turned humiliation into power and proved that being underestimated was my greatest advantage. The family, humbled, had to accept reality. Daniel, once hesitant, now fully supported me. The company thrived under my leadership, and I had earned the respect I had long deserved. Every insult, every laugh, every correction had been a stepping stone to this moment. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just belong, I ruled quietly, perfectly, and permanently.